let me welcome everybody to this defense. We're absolutely delighted to be here today to have Mariam defend her very interesting dissertation. Delighted to have Terrence Lyons here, the chair of the program, and super delighted to have Mariam's daughters.
And son who's stuck out for the moment.
And son stepped out. Let me introduce the committee very quickly. The committee, I'm Richard Rubenstein, I'm the committee chair. I've been here 30 years this year at ESCAR, and enjoyed every minute of it almost. Certainly have enjoyed this particular part of it, Mariam's dissertation. My colleague sitting next to me is Leslie Dwyer, who came from a career in anthropology to become the head of the program at Haverford, and has been here and been an invaluable colleague for a number of years now. 8 years now. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Time flies. And Gwendolyn Mikell is an anthropologist from George Mason University.
Georgetown.
I'm sorry, from Georgetown. Sorry, George.
I know.
From Georgetown, and we're very happy to have you here from across the way. I'm doing a conference next week with several of your colleagues that I'll talk to you about, let you know about. So welcome. Gwen, and Mark Jacobs is the George Mason sociologist, who's currently at Oxford University at Wilson College, and who's been also with Gwen and Leslie, a vital member of this committee, very interested in the work. Mariam Kurtz has been here for 4 years now, and is a graduate originally of St. Edward University, where she got her bachelor's degree in communication, and she's a master's recipient from this place, from George Mason University. Had a career as a journalist, and currently is also a fellow, a non-resident fellow at Harvard University. I have to say about Mariam that she has been one of those students who's been able to combine an intense interest in the place where she came from and in conflict in East Africa, Tanzania in particular. Been able to combine those interests with a high degree of, shall I say, cosmopolitan learning, enough detachment to be able to look back at the experiences that she's gone through and that her country people are going through, and with an ability to kind of contextualize that and an ability to see what sources of problems are and what potential possibilities for resolution there are, and a rare, really, ability to combine the subjective and the objective. She's also taken on a subject in this dissertation which many other students have avoided for reasons I don't know, it's taking much too long to explain the reasons. But the idea that there is often a socioeconomic basis for conflict, and that economic development is one of those fields that needs strong, well-balanced, critical theorizing and critical analysis, is one that Mariam has gone for in a big way. And so she's focused on mining. Mining activities in Tanzania in a most interesting comparative way. So we're very interested to hear more from you about what you've done, Mariam, but it's been very interesting working on this project.
Okay, thank you. And thank you all of you for supporting me. There was no way I would be standing here doing this without you guys. And thank you so much for this, giving me opportunity to be here and doing all this. And I started this project back in 2015 when I went to Tanzania to look for location to conduct my research. So I got to this village, this small town called Kahama, and the bus driver put me in the wrong bus. My intention was to go to Mwadui diamond mine, but the bus conductor put me to another bus that heading to Kakola. Then I found out myself I'm in Kakola, but I never heard of Kakola. I didn't know this place, even though I'm from Tanzania. So the bus dropped me and disappeared. I was alone, I didn't know anybody. Then I look on the other side, I saw food vendors. So I approached one of those food vendors, and there was other people eating there. And I asked them, I'm looking for a taxi. And that time I didn't know that I was in Kakola. I have no idea where I was. And I thought I was in Mwadui, where I was going, my early intentions. So this one of the guy, he stand up and called for a taxi. And a guy with a bicycle came to me. And I told him, I'm looking for a taxi. He said, this is a taxi. I said, then he said, do you need another one for your suitcase? I said, no, I will walk. You just put my suitcase in your bike. Then we started walking. Then I asked him, take me to very close guest house, close to Mwadui diamond mine. He said, sister, this is far away from Mwadui. This is Kakola. I was at Kakola. Then I said, I got very upset. Of course, it was after 8 o'clock. And he asked me what you are trying to do, what you are looking for. I said, I'm looking for a place to conduct my research. And I explained to him, well, I'm a student and all that. And he said, sister, it's possible where we are walking here, there's a people working underneath. I was like, this is the largest gold mine in East Africa. I was like, what? Then I decided that is a place then. But my intention not to be there just happened. So living in Kakola and doing my research, going back and forth, and I learned that there are four types of conflict existing in Kakola as a consequence of land acquisition for mining. There's a conflict between local people and the government. And also there's a conflict between local people and mining corporations. And also the conflict between the government and mining corporation. There's also conflict among the people in that community. And this conflict is between men and men and women. They are struggling over few resources left because most of it already taken by corporate mining corporations. So also doing research and being in that village, I learned that the villagers they have so much anger and frustrations toward their government more than toward the mining corporations, because they felt that their government, they've been betrayed them, they've evicted them, they've been marginalized them from natural resources. Also, the government refer these people, local people, as illegal occupants on that land that they've been living there for decades. And these villagers, they are even angry when this corporation, they got concession to acquire and extract gold in their own land. That for them, that land is a sacred. It's a source of communal survival. And also the land is connect them, the villagers, the living, with the ancestors, the dead, with the resources and also future generations. That's how they tie the land and themselves. So empirical evidence in this study will help to explain the impact of land acquisition for mining to the vulnerable people, including women who are victims of customary land holdings in Kakola. So when I started this project, I had no clue what I'm going to write about. But I knew that I was very interested to write something about traditional African conflict resolution. For example, the use of elders in a court system. So I went to see Rich, and I spoke with him, and I explained my interests, what I want to do. And Rich said, okay, go read everything about traditional African conflict resolution. When you are done, come and see me. Then I did my homework, I read a lot, then I end up developing and teaching a class regarding to the subject at George Mason and also Georgetown. In the spring of 2014, I attended the International Association of Women Judges Conference, took place Arusha, Tanzania. In that meeting, I met judges from across the world, and particularly African judges. They brought the issue of land conflict. Then when I went back to Dar es Salaam, a place where I'm from, I met some of my friends, lawyers and journalists. In my conversation with them, they brought the issue of land acquisition. So I have two ideas. I had a land conflict and land acquisition. And I was very interested to combine the two. It was very appealing to me. Then I decided to read more about land acquisition. Then in that process, I learned there are three major types of land acquisition. There's a land acquisition for tourism, there's a land acquisition for agriculture, and also land acquisition for mining. So I decided to choose land acquisition for mining. Why? Because Tanzania is among of African countries targeted for land acquisition for mining more than agriculture and tourism. And also there's more new discoveries of mining sites because of the advanced technology, make it easier to explore new opportunities of mining sites in Tanzania and other parts of sub-Saharan Africa. Land acquisition in general is a major source of social conflict and collective violence in different places, in different time. During the colonial time, social conflict led to the creation of new independent states in Africa in the 1960s. In post-colonial government also, there's a lot of social conflict and collective violence when the post-colonial government tried to take land from local people for different purposes. For example, Ujamaa villageization in Tanzania in 1974. There was a lot of violence when land tried to take land, government tried to take land from people. So today, actually, in this era of trade liberalization, we are experiencing a lot of conflict, especially in the area of mining. In this process of land acquisition, local people are evicted from their land. They are not only losing their spiritual and economic ties, but also they are losing their kinship networks. So my research question is, how does the global process of land acquisition for mining in Kakola contradict local people's perception of land and the relationship to the land and each other in terms of their kinship relations as well as economic and cultural dynamics? How has this process of land alienation affected local people's right to their land and its resources? How does the process impact traditional mechanism of conflict resolution, for example, the use of elders, ancestral ties, and the spiritual ceremonies? So method. I use mixed method approach, and this is multi-sited ethnography of two villages. They are 10 miles apart. One village has mining, another village with no mining. I use village with no mining in order to understand the impact of corporate mining in Kakola. Then I had a structured and unstructured interviews. I interviewed total of 164 people from Kakola, Ikinda, government officials in Tanzania, scholars from here, United States, and also Tanzania, and also I interviewed people in Germany. I was able to analyze archival and online materials. I had a survey of 40 students in German. I had a focus group of 13 widows in Ikinda and 10 widows in Kakola. The purpose of focus group is to explore how corporate mining impact widows' livelihood, their well-being, and their social network before corporate came in, after how corporate impacted this aspect. So this focus group met for more than 2 hours in their own villages. I was able to participant observation. I was able to participate in 2 rituals. One was family ritual, and another one was a communal ritual. But in that process, participants described the meaning and the process of symbols in the ritual. So I was able to take part in this very intimate event of this Sukuma people because my ethnic group is Zigua. I have a special relationship, joking partnership with this Sukuma people. So when I'm there, when the Sukuma find out I'm from Zigua ethnic group, they didn't see me as outsider. I become insider. That's why I was able to be part of this process. So this worship, this is a ancestral ceremony, was for this family, Elizabeth's family, was to pray for the well-being and the good fortune for this particular family. And Elizabeth has her books here because her dream is to go to school. So she was asking her ancestors. We did this to her grandfather and also to her grandmother. So this was grandfather. So she wanted her dream to come true. She asked him blessing from the ancestors. So here is a communal ceremony. We're praying for rain and gold because 2016 Tanzania was facing the threat of shortage of rain during the planting season. So people were expecting 2017 we're going to be disaster, shortage of food in 2017. So that was about. So in that process, when they slaughter about, we have a goat, sheep, and cow. This was a cow. So when they cut those animals in the middle, for example, this is a cow. The stomach came out in the form of balloon. So when that happened, these people were so happy. They got so excited. So I was like, what's going on here? They said, this is good news. If this came flat, we all have to leave to go somewhere else to find somewhere else to live. But this is good news. Because that means the rain will come and God will show up. And the people on that land will flourish. That was the meaning of that. Data analysis. I analyzed the data with the varieties of method using thematic approach, which enabled me to organize raw information in particular categories. For example, land alienation, land holding, women and land holding, conflict resolution mechanism, and others. Then I connected similar ideas, concepts, emotions into one place, and that's where I was able to interpret in thematic codes and the theories of land acquisition emerge. And this is my transcript that's been doing here as well. So findings. Before 1995, in Kakola, land was self-acquired. Anyone can go to Kakola and acquire land as long as any amount of land, as long as they have consent from the local people who were living there. Land was commodified in Kakola after discovery of gold in 1975. Because they found a precious stone on the soil, the land, somehow they started seeing the land, has to have monetary value, has a money value. They saw land as something could be sold, bought, and leased. Because of discovery of gold, hybrid land ownership emerged. Land was treated as commodity, individual property, at the same time as a source of survival. Because of discovery of gold, land holding shifted from what I call inclusive clan land ownership to nuclear family. Land belong to mother, father, and the children. If father passed away, the women started taking direct access to the land. And this is the first time in history in this place, women to have direct access to the land. In customary land holding, in many societies in sub-Saharan Africa, matrilineal or patrilineal, women has no direct access to land. They own land through their husbands, their fathers, son, uncles, or other male relatives. So this hybrid system in Kakola, this is patrilineal society, gave women access to the land. But these women lost that access when corporate mining moved in and took almost all the land from them. And when I interviewed them, most of them, they claim they never got paid until now. and the land was acquired back in 1996. Women in Kakola lost their corporate microfinancing scheme also they created before the eviction. Discovery of gold in Kakola led to creation of landed and landless classes. A CoOp system was created. Relationship between landlord and landless was not commercialized. Labor was not commodified, even though land was commodified. So they were able to maintain their relationship because of the values they are holding, the meaning they are holding about their land. Land as a source of survival for everyone. So because of CoOp system, they have landless, they had the landless, they shared the benefit from the mining. They were not alienated from the resources, as Karl Marx explained in his alienation theory, explaining what's happening in Europe. So in this CoOp system, that's how they divide the gold. I took all these pictures. So this is a bags have a sand contain gold. So in every 10 bags, 3 bags goes to landlord. 7 bags will go to everyone who was involved in production. That's how they share. Corporate mining destroyed conflict resolution mechanism. Ancestors and elders are most significant figures in conflict management and resolution in many African societies. Ancestors are considered to be in continuum with the living family. The living communicate with the dead through ritual and monologue. The living seek help from ancestors when individual or group face inner conflict, interpersonal conflict, or communal conflict. Again, here is Elizabeth. She's facing inner conflict. There's something bothering her, worries about her future. So she go and talk to the ancestors. Elders are key figure in conflict resolution because of their lifetime experience. In Kakola, this conflict management resolution approach was destroyed by corporate mining. Elders were forced to move out of Kakola. Elders were not capable of providing labor in mining site, and also the elders, they tend to hold their old way of living, because in Tanzania there's 2 groups who are involved in pastoralism: Sukuma people and Maasai. But the Sukuma, Maasai, they migrate. Pastoralists, they just keep going. But Sukuma, because they practice both pastoralism as well as agriculture, so they settle. That's why they have a strong connection with the land, different from Maasai. So the elders, they hold those ways of being pastoralists. That's a part of their identity. So they have to go somewhere else where they have a place they can continue to care for cows and to continue that identity. So Kakola was not a place to entertain them to be, because their pastoral land was turned into mining sites. So there was no place for grazing their cattle. Corporate mining damaged marriage kinships. In order to get married in Kakola, among Sukuma, the whole ethnic group, and Sukuma people in Kakola too, you have to have cows, because cow is a part of their identity. So you use cow to pay bride price, which is bride worth. Before corporate mining came to Kakola, young men they abandoned the pastoralism because they wanted to go work in a mining site. But because they had access to natural resources, so they were well off, they were good, because they felt like, I don't want to sit here and take care of the family cows. I can go to the mine and make money fast. So a lot of men, they were attracted to the mining and abandoned cow. But they have access to the gold. So the time when they reach the age of getting married, these young men, they'll go to the mining sites and work. And they will get gold. And they will sell the gold. After they sell the gold, they'll have money to buy cows. And they use those cows to pay bride price. But when corporate mining came in Kakola, they alienated those people. They had no access to the natural resources anymore. So this young man has no access to the mining anymore. So that means what? There's no access of gold, no money, and no wives. And also through eviction, there was no place for the family to live in Kakola. Big thieves, small thieves, and power of gender. Corporate mining caused shortage of land, which led local people to struggle of few resources remain. And that created the culture of greed, theft, deceptive behavior in Kakola. So when I went to Ikinda to look for this kind of aspect of behavior, this kind of incident of robbery, theft, and deceptive behavior were rare in the village with no mining. In Kakola, the group of young men known as Manyani, monkeys, emerged. Manyani are part of landless class. They hang out in the mining site with no specific jobs. Instead, they are looking for opportunities to steal gold from other small-scale miners. Often, the Manyani end up losing stolen gold to the money to the women through deception. So here, this is a scenario. These young men, they're about 16 to 32 years old. They'll be in the mining, looking for which gold pit they can go and grab gold. So when they know there's a certain pit, there's a gold there, they will sneak night and they took the gold. When they are doing that, also looking for that opportunity, also there's a women behind them, just watching who's the lucky man who will go get a gold that day. Then the women also will go after those men, and they end up, women become winners in that process. Employment. In Kakola, some local people benefited from land acquisition, but others were hurt. A shortage of water, for example, created employment for young people who fetched water from distant villages and they bring and sell to the village for about US dollars 25 cents for 20 liters of water. A shortage of land enabled landlords to lease their properties at higher price. So they have, in that village, they have a property, commercial properties, and also they have residential properties, and they're expensive. The guest house I was living was $12 a night, which for the village middle of nowhere is very expensive. Implication of the findings, contribution and further research. In general, land acquisition for mining in Africa is understudied, despite the fact that millions of acres of African land have been acquired by transnational corporations every year. There's about 134 million hectares have been acquired from 2000 and 2010. And also an estimate of 6 million hectares will be brought into production every year from now and 2030. My contribution in this study is to bring experience of local people who provide a more complex explanation of the impact of land acquisition for mining in their communities and culture. This study also explains theories of land acquisition in African context. This study also will provide empirical evidence of the impact of corporate mining on women who are already victims of customary landholding practice in this sub-Saharan African village. Limitation. My findings from this study, there is only a single study of this village of Kakola. So if I had the money and time, I'll be more curious to look at other communities in the mining site in Tanzania, also other parts of sub-Saharan Africa. So this finding also, I'm just trying to say that it does not generalize other communities. It's possible the finding completely different, opposite for what I found in Kakola. So further research is needed to study communities in mining site that were able successful to address the grievances related to land acquisition for mining. Implications for the field. Failure to satisfy basic needs is a major source of social conflict and the collective violence in Kakola and in many communities around the mining sites. Often these basic needs have been generalized they've been seen from the lens of pro-development paradigm, which emphasize on economic, health, and education, but not spiritual and the kinship needs that local people might value as their basic needs. Therefore, conflict resolution practitioners should listen to people in order to identify their needs and grievances that lead to their frustrations and outrage. Policy implications. Lawmakers should avoid piecemeal reforms that focus on a particular problem as they emerged. A lot of this peaceful reform end up to contradict other policies existing in the country. For example, livestock policies and land policies. Institutional reforms should cover broader issues from social, economic, and environmental, not only focus on how to attract the foreign direct investment or to protect this investment, but should also focus on protecting vulnerable people in this rural village of Africa, Tanzania, and Africa in general. For here, in this case in Tanzania, my recommendation to Tanzania particularly. Government and the human rights activists should not rely on the report and presentation from mining companies and corrupt political officials, since their reports often do not reflect reality on the ground. So when you go to the website of Acacia today, you will see a picture of these young elementary school kids dancing and happy, but smiling. But for me, because I've been in the field and I saw what's going on there, I'm calling these faces of smiling kids, those crying faces. These kids are crying inside. Acacia and Barrick, they try to express themselves. They are conforming with the corporate social responsibility, but they are not. They claim they are building schools in host countries, but in Kakola, there's only one school. And this school has 2,376 students. It's one school, but they call it two schools. On the writings, it's two schools. But on reality, it's one school. There's just one building. It's not very big, very small. And they decided to call it this Kakola A Elementary School and this Kakola B Elementary School. So there's no truth about it. School has flooded toilets. So when I talk to the teachers in school, they claim that students spend a lot of time on a line waiting to go to the bathrooms. So they're grabbing something to eat or rest, they'll be standing on a line waiting to use those flooded bathrooms. Acacia and Barrick, they claim that they are developing infrastructures in host countries, but in Kakola, there's a dust road everywhere. There's a dust everywhere. I got sick when I was there last time. And they cover the molasses just to pacify the villagers when they try to protest. Also, Parliament should pass a law that requires a portion of mining revenue to remain in the villages where mining sites are located for economic and social development. And also a percentage of earning from revenue extraction should be prevented from going outside the country. So in Kakola, which is located at the third largest gold mine in Africa, they've been in Kakola from officially, they've been in Kakola since 2001 to 2016. They've been extracting, according to their website, over 3 million ounces of gold. So when you multiply that 3 million ounces of gold by average gold price today, which is $1,280, you get over $3 billion. They've been going outside the country. And the village and the country is a very poor country. And the village has no water, people that have no access to clean water. There's no school, one school, no hospitals, no roads. People live in a very extremely poverty. So I think it would be fair trade some of this money to remain in the country, in those percentage of this revenue money they're making to remain in those host countries. Thank you.
Mariam, thanks for a very interesting presentation. The committee is now going to ask some questions.
Okay.
or make some suggestions. As is our custom, I think we'll start with our member of the committee who's outside the university, was Gwendolyn. And let you ask, now since there are 4 of us, we want to limit our questions in terms of time to something reasonable. And I'm sure you will. So please.
Well, thank you, Mariam, for a wonderful presentation, but also for a very informative thesis. I found myself reflecting on the fact that people have tended to look at Tanzania and to say it's the one African country where there has not been civil war, there has not been large-scale ethnic conflict. It's maybe the most peaceful country around.
Yes, yes.
But what you're suggesting is that the economic practices have simply pushed conflict further down to the ground level, to the people to resources level. So I'm wondering whether you thought that Julius Nyerere was aware of what was happening with villagization, whether he was aware of conflicts that were being generated by the processes that he set in motion, and whether you could talk about that, because that's the very beginning of what you're looking at.
Nyerere's idea of villagization, I'm saying this question first, of villagization is, the purpose was to bring, because people they used to live with scattered places. So Nyerere's idea is to bring people together in community so they can have access to these resources like a hospital, water, and other things. So, but it's true, in that process people resisted. They resisted. First of all, the land they were given, they felt was not enough for them, and that's why villagization did not last. Actually, did not last at all. As soon people started moving back to their own, and that time, that process, there was a lot of violence because people were resisting their land. That they are much in the fertile. Sometimes the fertile land, the one they were given by the government, was not very good land. But they have to move near with everyone. Yeah, so conflict were there, and I would say Nyerere is aware of what
yes,
of conflict.
Was he observing what was happening as a result of the policy? Did he understand?
Yes, he saw. Yes, he saw. I think he saw the resistance of land acquisition, and he saw the failure because it didn't last longer. The villagization did not last because this is like more. He was more like a African socialism because he believed. The major means of production to be owned by everyone. So he wanted to share those resources and easier to distribute the other whatever is needed to the people. Yeah. So the second question, I hope I answer your question.
Yeah, but what was he thinking of doing about that, or was he at all interested in any kind of manipulation of things in order to quell conflict?
In order to do what?
This is a very local level conflict.
Yes, yeah.
And I'm curious as to whether he perceived the conflict between, say, male and female, whether he perceived the conflict or the benefits set in motion by the nuclear family organization that he encouraged.
Yeah, actually, at the time of Nyerere, conflict was suppressed. You know, people that resisted, but they were suppressed by Nyerere. On one of my interview here, this guy, they took land from him, and he wanted that land badly because it was a good land, so he wanted his land back. You know, there's no place to complain because one single party system. You know, so you can't say much. Then they throw him to jail. Then when he came out, yeah, there's no place where we can complain. Then he dropped it. The land was taken by other people. So so you understand that people resisted. You understand the level of conflict, and but his conflicts were suppressed that time.
Okay.
Yeah. And the other question about Tanzania is a peaceful country, right? And also I think because of Nyerere at that time, when after independence, Nyerere he dismissed tribalism. Yes. He encouraged equality between the people. So in the long run, everybody was able to get education after colonial power left. Everybody was able to get education. So in that sense, for a long time, the gap between poor and rich were very small. Okay. So the tension between the people in a community was that is a communal. Let's also nearly believe land is belong to everyone. Right. Land is a gift of God to people. Mm-hmm. So you cannot say, okay, you cannot claim this is my land. He compare land as the air you breathe. You can't come, this is my air, so you can't do that. So land is belong to everybody. Everyone is entitled to the land, what he believes. So inequality. So I think because his value of equality, so even his policies in Tanzania was more into equality, equal. So that's why the conflict was so suppressed. Even though the mining, these people, they exist together. There was a mining in Kakola. Okay, but
even under Nyerere.
Under Nyerere, there's a mining in Kakola because 75, Nyerere was in power. Right. But there was no conflict between Manyani were not existing that time. Manyani existed in the 1980s, but not 1970s and that time, and the other areas too. So because of this communal, abundant resources for everyone, the gap between rich and poor is not there. So for everyone in the world, people look for well-being for everyone. So the conflict was not much. Yeah.
Okay, that's really interesting. And I don't know, should I have time for another question? Sure. Okay. What would Nyerere have thought about mining, about gold mining, given that it was taking place both in the large free land corporations were allowed to come in? I'm not sure of what date.
Yes.
But they also were beginning to mine in areas that were inhabited that were in villages. What was Nyerere's?
Yes, so Kakola, they discovered gold in 1975. When the news spread across the country and got to Dar es Salaam, to the capital, there's a lot of gold in Bulyanhulu. This is Bulyanhulu. That's the Kakola is at. And so Nyerere, he has a value of equality, but also, with the global economy, you don't live in your own small bubble. You have to be able to work with other people. He believed in ujamaa, but the government entered joint venture, the government of Nyerere, joint venture with South African company the first time. They started extracting gold there. There's eviction in Kakola. This 1996 was the second eviction. The first eviction was 1976, the first eviction. So Nyerere himself evicted people to allow the corporate mining because of the government revenue, government to get something there. So Nyerere, yes, but still contradicting himself. That's why at the end of the day, after structure adjustment, Nyerere has stepped out because the whole thing of the world direction we are going was contradicting his values. So Nyerere, he found himself in somewhere he was lost, even though he wasn't admitting. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Mark, would you like to ask some questions?
First of all, I want to say that, I guess I submitted a lot of comments, and I thought that Mariam did a great job of addressing my comments. I thought it was a really sharp presentation, very coherent, very powerful. But I was thinking in some ways, based on Gwendolyn's question, whether there's anything that the local leadership could have done. I think in the dissertation you mentioned the conditions created by the IMF and the World Bank and U.S. aid agencies as creating conditions that local governments didn't have the means to address. So I wanted to pursue that a little bit. is there any local remedy that's possible? And the other sort of part of that is you're sort of making me think about the notion of a global public sphere or a global civil society. At one point in the dissertation, we were talking about the power of nonviolent resistance. And that actually didn't seem very convincing to me, to be honest, because it just seems that there was so much unlawful violence being exercised that it was going to be hard to counter. But during the presentation, I was wondering about, whether some sort of global civil society and some sort of global movement of trying to shine publicity on these practices might offer some hope of remedy.
Yeah, if I got your questions right. So the first question was the local remedies, what the local leaders can do to address the problems, right?
Right.
So
what they could do to safeguard the rights to the local residents who were losing them.
Okay. So okay, this is a very interesting question because a year ago I was interviewing these local leaders about what's happening in Kakola, and these leaders were so negative on the people, their own people. You see, so I was expecting them to be on the side of the local people, but somehow they're siding with the corporate mining. Then I learned that these local leaders, they have an interest in the mining. They own sites, mining sites. So the corporate mining, for example, corporate may be possible inside with the corporate also. They are, like a taxes. The Acacia and Barrick, they never paid taxes for 5-6 years. So, but they were covered by leaders, and also in the small scale miner, the little resources left, land left, small scale miners. So they are digging gold beside the biggest mining site. So in that little space there, also these leaders, they bought the land, they own those mining pits also. So there's a benefiting from that. So even when I'm going to back to even last time when I was there, I started getting scared because I find out that local leaders have been stealing from people, deceiving the people. I got letters from the villagers, like during the payment of compensation of the loss of land, some of them. Those letters, the contracts, they're in English. And these people, they cannot read and write, some of them. Some of these people, they can't even speak Swahili, the national language. So how do you give them contract to sign about the payment of some money about their land, that in English? So those kind of things. Even when I was there myself, even if I'm going back, I'll be scared to go back. I have to be smart about going back there. Because my fear is not villagers, and my fear won't be the mining corporations. My fear is the government officials and the local leaders. That's what I will fear most, because they are not on the side of the people. So, but good news is the new president Magufuli now, he's taking off on those leaders. That's why he's unfolding the stories about. You can see now every day there's a new story about a Barrick today, with the taxes scandals, and there's so many other scandals. With this contract in English also, these are another scandal. So the current president is going after those people right now. So that's, I think, is more. Did I answer your question? Question?
So you're making a case for journalism. Actually, you're going back to your old profession. Because journalists are essential to a public sphere, and you wonder if we shouldn't start to think about a sort of global public sphere. You know, I mean, there's obviously a lot of local bribery, which is what you're just, you know, describing.
Yes.
But there's a global context, you know, for the violation of rights and of ways of life.
Yes.
And so you know,
Like for example, the environment.
you need to keep cycling among different careers.
Yeah. Can you repeat again? I'm sorry, I got lost. Can you say again?
No, I was saying that it seems that you're making a case for, you know, for the need for journalism and for publicizing these abuses.
Yes.
Yeah. There is a need. Actually, there is this. For me, I found very interesting. Also, it's kind of nice doing this research. I found also that international communities, NGOs, have been involved in helping these people. For example, the case of North Mara. North Mara is another mining site, barrick and acacia extracting gold there. And in this mining site, local people, they're not like people of Kakola. People of Kakola, they are very calm and patient, but people of North Mara, they were not. They are a little aggressive, and they somehow they're stereotyped. They've been known for that. So they practice both. They practice non-violence and also violence. So when the day they wanted to do non-violence protest, they will call all the media, international media. I think they have some connection with the people in foreign countries. They will call all these media, international media. Today we're going to protest. And there's a lot of coverage about North Mara, actually, than Bulyanhulu. Nobody knows much about Bulyanhulu, but North Mara, yes. So the international media will go there and cover it. So the government, that government, not the country, was upset with them for, you know, sending all this information out. The country looked bad that way. And also, they practiced also violence. Several times they crash the mining site inside. They try to take those gold from the mining. But some of them end up get killed by security guard, kill them. You find the news portray as the villagers are bad guys. You know, they felt like the security guard, they were entitled to kill them. Then they don't see how much this structure violence, they corporate mining kill people. So in that fight, in that big fight, then these people from North Mara, they end up filing a case, lawsuit in England. They did not even file a lawsuit in Tanzania because they have no, they claim that they don't have faith with the judicial system in Tanzania. So, so this legal firm, which is English legal firm, helped them, and finally they were able to settle the dispute outside the court recently. Yeah.
That's a really interesting case.
Yeah, it might be something, when you do the revision, the final revision, it might be something you'd want to add in the policy implications section. Because it is very interesting. Mark, is there something else you'd like to ask?
No, I'll pass on to someone else now.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Leslie.
Hi, Mariam. Congratulations on finishing the thesis.
Thank you.
I know you and I have talked a number of times about one of the things that I especially appreciate about this work, which is your focus on gender.
Yes.
Because I think that when you talk about women's relationship to land and how it's mediated by reproduction, it's mediated by kinship. It's not maybe the same as men's relationship to land under what you're calling customary law or under what you're calling the clan
land ownership, inclusive clan land
inclusive clan ownership system. I find that to be really, really powerful because I think oftentimes people who are writing about these issues of communities versus corporations around land, around mining, around natural resource extraction tend to sort of homogenize the community versus the corporation. So I love that we're getting a sense of how complex it is and how contingent it is upon women's status and relationships and kinship and so on.
Thanks.
I do want to say this, I have a couple of comments, some of which I've made to you before in writing and in our discussions, and then I have two hopefully quick questions. So in terms of comments, I think that in some ways the complexity that we're seeing with your discussion of gender, the promise of that maybe isn't fulfilled in terms of the thesis as a whole, where there are moments at which you still set up this binary divide between sort of customary or traditional relationships of land and this modern commodification of land. And I'm not sure if the sort of the rigidness of the binary that you're evoking at other points of the thesis like actually holds all the way through. And I think it parallels this other divide that you've constructed between sort of what you're calling land ownership, relationships to land in the West, which is sort of symbolized by that survey that you did with German undergraduates, if you recall, which I know that I told you that I thought was somewhat problematic in the sense that I'm not sure that sort of 19-year-olds at a German university sort of represent like the West or maybe even are the best sort of sample for getting at what do people outside of Tanzania think about land, right? I mean, I know that like my 19-year-old kid doesn't think about land ever, right? Right, but you know, so anyway, so I'm not sure that that's the right sample for sort of trying to say this is the West. And then on the other hand, this evocation of sort of African with a sort of big A homogenous category. So that's just a comment that I think that's still lingering in the thesis in ways that I think are maybe taking away from the richness of the specific case and what you're able to tell us about how this plays out in very complex social kinds of ways. The other thing that I wanted to, well, maybe I'll just actually move to the questions. The other thing that I had mentioned in my comments just really briefly was that I still find it problematic that you're setting up, Ikinda as almost a control group of no mining, and saying that, for instance, because your research assistant told you that they didn't have a problem with theft, that bears a causal relationship somehow to the absence of mining or the presence of mining. I don't really think that you have robust enough data to be able to make that claim and to be able to sustain the status of this other village that you didn't really spend much time in as some kind of control for what would have happened if you hadn't had mining. I still think that that's problematic. Two questions. So you decided, I think for some very good reasons, not to speak to corporate or government actors and to focus most of your interviews and your focus groups and your field research with folks in local people in this community. Do you think, or could you say something maybe a little bit more about why you made that decision, and do you think that you would have gotten some different kinds of data if you had spoken to them? Because I'm really interested in what you just said in response to Mark's comments about corruption at the local level, and I'm wondering if you talk to corporate actors, if they would have the perspective of, hey, yeah, we paid compensation, right? But it was taken by nefarious local actors, or sort of how that's working out. And because in my experience, oftentimes when you do speak to corporate actors, they have a very, very different narrative of the conflict and sort of what has gone on. And I think that it's important to I know you went on their website and sort of saw how they described their corporate social responsibility efforts, but how do you think they would see their role in the conflict?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Yes. My original plan is to interview because I want to know that what do they perceive land as the investors. That was really, I want to hear from them, from their own mouth. I want to do that. So I tried my best to try to get them. I called them, I crashed. I went to the headquarters in Tanzania and knocked the door. They never let me in. I went to the mining site. I locked the door. I called them in their office in London, tried to get someone to talk to me. What did you understand about land? What do you understand? These ideas, what I'm talking to these people, and what you have to say about it. If that's a limitation, maybe I can say for this project. I could not get their side. I wanted their side badly, but I could not get it. And one other question was talking about. Yeah, I spent some time in Ikinda. Maybe not equal time, because I was doing more interview this side than the other, but I spent time there. I wasn't there just briefly, and I learned some aspect of how people they live in Ikinda.
Yeah. Okay.
So
and
I don't see I wasn't treating the Ikinda as a control group.
Yeah.
Maybe it feels to you as a control group, but not, because I'm looking for the themes. They live this way and how they live this side. But I wasn't treating it as a control group.
Okay, I know we talked about this. We've talked about this before.
Yeah.
And so my other question, and I'm really curious about this at the end, where you sort of return to some of your conflict resolution roots and try to propose some kinds of approaches towards addressing this conflict. And I really appreciate that you're also at the same time kind of moving out of some of the sort of tactics and methodologies that we have as a field towards really looking at some of the structural underpinnings of the conflict and the importance of, for example, addressing the legal and regulatory infrastructure, right?
Yes.
So it's not simply a matter of bringing people together to dialogue, that this is something that also has to happen at a deep structural level, and as I think as Mark is suggesting, also at a global level, as we think about the relationship of international institutions, from the World Bank promoting the certification of land globally in the early 1970s, which sort of started this whole move away from collective forms of land ownership to the commodification of land as a cornerstone of economic development globally, right? Because when you see this happening now, you still see it being framed in the language of empowering local communities by giving them that piece of paper, right?
Yeah.
And I think what you're showing us in the thesis is that there's much more complex social relationships that shape this transition from a collective to an individual who's holding that piece of paper, whether it's the male head of the household only, or who is it that ends up with that piece of paper, which is supposed to be empowering in this development language, which I think is really interesting.
Yes.
And so given that, I'm wondering, at the end of the thesis, you place a lot of emphasis on the notion of compensation and the idea of compensation as being maybe one of the most important effective remedies to the situation.
Yes.
And so I'm wondering, and I'm super, super curious about this, because I'm seeing this also in Indonesia, where I'm working on, as you know, something very similar having to do with the acquisition of land for corporate palm oil production. And do you think that compensation is sufficient, or what else needs to happen to make sure that compensation is actually received by people in an equitable sort of way, that women actually receive it, that we're shifting our focus away from sort of this notion of to heads of household to an equitable distribution in the community? And also, how does compensation let us address some of the structural drivers that are allowing this to happen, right? My concern sometimes is that compensation is exchanged, and that's seen as kind of the end of the relationship, the social and the political relationship. You're divorced from your land, you've received an amount of money, and corporations love compensation schemes because it's over and you have no more claim on them. And so I'm wondering, if you have sort of any thoughts. And again, I'm really genuinely curious, because I think it's a dilemma.
Yeah. Being transparent. The actors, government actors, need to be transparent in the process of compensation. One. So I'm going back because it's very, very interesting. This is very big interest. Everything is online. Everybody can access it. Public can access it. Mining companies themselves in Canada, they can access it. How this money went and who has get paid and how much get paid, and all that evaluation of the property. And these people has to understand their rights, what I'm entitled to, and how much per acre, and what. So this is actually, thank you for bringing this up. The issue of compensation is very complicated, not for Kakola itself, and the other areas of mining sites, from India to South America. Because even when I look at the website of the mining companies, I find out yes, I didn't get the opportunity to interview them, but I can sense them, their language they're using. They do not see the land, the value of land, because compensation is value, right? And because of the value of your land. They don't see this. They don't see the land in terms of size, or this in terms of the fertile land. How quality and quantity of the land is not the amount to compensate. What they're looking at for them, when they see the land, they don't look land in that sense, the size or whatever. They look at the land based on amount, how many leaves of precious stones.
Oh, so they're
Gold
valuing it
is a
based on
value
their estimation of
for
the
themselves,
mineral
and that is
content.
for themselves. Yes, there's a gold there.
Because they can use technology.
Yes, just there. They don't care about this goes this way and the fetos. There's water sources. They grow rice there, vegetables. They don't care about it. They got their gold for themselves. So, this is a problem. Okay, people, me and you, the farmers, they look. My land was fertile, was on a valley. So when doing the compensation doesn't based on how fertile your land is. They just go, they don't look at quality and quantity. They don't look that. They just look for themselves. So it end up paying minimal. Who got paid just like in flat amount.
Yeah.
So like this place in India, they are complaining about people who have their land is located in the valley.
Yeah.
They are complaining about why they got paid similar as the people who their land located in the mountains in dry areas.
Yeah.
So,
if you go forward with it, you might want to talk to some of the NGOs that are working on this,
Yes.
because people have been using some very interesting methods of, for instance, participatory mapping, where they're looking at community mapping of this is fertile land, this is the water source, this is ways in which that flat landscape, where it's just divided up into geometric blocks
Yes.
and then compensated,
Yes.
however much per hectare, where communities are actually creating maps to say, like, this is how we're seeing a landscape and this is how we're imagining its
for
value.
Tanzania, it was more complicated because the leaders, they are there to look for their own interests. So like village leaders. So by compensation, from the interviews, they claim the village people I interviewed, they claim that the amount was in the paper. The day they went to sign it was different from the amount was deposited in their bank accounts.
Yeah.
So even though you come, this untrusted. So the issue on this all just is a transparency.
Is it governance? May I interject? Is it governance also?
Yes.
Is there another level of governance between the local
Local government.
and regional? Is there a regional governance structure? 'Cause
Yes.
It strikes me that the issues.
So
you're raising about
if
that-
there's a local government, there's a regional government, district government, the regional government, and national government.
And no monitoring at.
So that's what I'm saying. There's no monitoring, nothing on the computer, nothing. So if it's a transparent everything in the website and what's going on, informed, good leadership. We have a different president now. Possible this will change, but back then was just people. They are there for their interest. The leaders, local leaders, are there for their own interest. They know this person these people. They own it. These widows own hundreds of acres of land, hundreds, and those acres contain gold. This woman Elizabeth, their land is in the middle of where Acacia is now. You know how much they got paid? $20 for that land.
But somebody probably got more than 20.
You see that's what I'm talking about? So maybe Acacia, they knew that, they know to pay this amount of money. But what end up, those poor people in a village, very vulnerable, nothing. And they have no place to go to talk about it.
Yeah. Which makes me think that compensation is part of a solution. But
Yes.
compensation itself is not
It's a
the
problem.
final solution,
Yes.
because it's also embedded in governance issues, transparency issues,
And so much
corruption.
and so much grievances of the people is toward compensation.
Yes.
Mark is trying to get in also. Mark?
You may remember, Mariam, that a few years ago, when we were talking, your project was just starting. I had heard about a NGO, I think it was called Landex,
Yes.
and I'm not sure they were working in Tanzania, but their strategy was actually to give women rights to land.
Yes.
And if there is if there is an NGO like that operating, that would be a very effective,
Yeah.
Conclusion to your book. I mean, to see what the effects of that are, as opposed to these sort of, compromised effects of these various compensations.
Yes. Yes. So far, I haven't seen any NGO there, despite a search for common ground. They have an office nearby. That's only I saw, but no other NGO. Maybe one I will launch my own NGOs.
There are no feminist NGOs around. Like the ones in French. What's the acronym in French? That works on land rights. That works on
the particular. If there is, there's no one there to touch that area of these people. No, nothing there to this very remote area. I don't even understand how I got there. I never heard of Kakola. Bulyanhulu never come to my mind. Just happened to be there. Very isolated place, even the richest place, the third largest gold mine in Africa. But there's so much injustice and inequality. This woman in the focus group, she was talking about her concern, her land being taken away by Acacia. So Acacia themselves also, they go after these women. This is a little port. So for parking lot, they want to park their cars there. But from the focus group, when we sit down and discuss it. Somehow she got some ideas. We kind of women sit together, we empowered her. So that's why I feel there's a need for having more NGOs in the area that to empower women in regarding to their rent rights. They have no idea about they don't know their rent rights. That's a problem. Yeah.
Are you done?
Yes.
Okay. Mariam, you've got an interesting dissertation when people are sitting around and it's making them think of things that they hadn't thought about before. I had two thoughts that I wanted to ask you about. One is this. I found myself thinking of how a kind of a modernization theorist would react to this. A standard modernization theorist, a Beberian or whatever, a Sam Huntington. One thing that sort of person might well say would be, well, to begin with, you sort of, in a way, you reverse what we would expect in the modernization process, because you said in a way that still, I must say, still even having reread this stuff, is still a little mysterious to me, and I hope you'll clarify it a bit in the final. You say the people who are on the land are not alienated by basically not having land anymore, because something is happening, because there are dividends, or because they're somehow included in they're getting benefits of the enterprise. And if that's true, then that would suggest that you're eliminating a possible source of social mobilization to change the system. So that when you say that you call in the end for retention of profits in the villages and the retention of profits of revenues in the country, and I'm asking myself, why should they do that? I mean, why are they going to do that? Why is anybody going to listen to that? Unless there's a mass movement that supports it.
Okay.
Let me finish the question. So the first problem I had was, how can there be a mass movement to support it if basically the working people have been bought off, as you suggest that they have, if that's what you suggest. You put it more gently than that. But the related question is, the reversal is, you say, well, they're not, so the working class is not being immiserated, as Marx said it was going to be in Europe, and as it actually was in Europe. But their spiritual and kinship needs are being neglected, is what you say. So I'm starting to think of what Sam Huntington or somebody like that would say to that. Would say, well, of course, that's part of the modernization process. The country people always, it's a very painful process. Family relationships change. spiritual needs aren't satisfied. The Catholic Church couldn't satisfy everybody's needs in Europe. After a while, so some of them became Protestant or non-religious.
Yeah.
But modernization proceeded, and it ended up with everybody better off. Which is something I don't think either you or I believe is happening in Africa. But nevertheless, I wonder how I guess the two things that I would like you to say a little bit more about are, what about the lack of alienation that you talk about, and where does that come from, and what are its implications? And don't you think spiritual and kinship needs are always transformed in the process of modernization? They're always unsatisfied in some ways, and people develop new needs and new ways of satisfying.
That's very interesting. Wow, I don't know where to start. Okay. People are not alienated from their land, even though there's a modernization took place. And this has to do with the values a lot of, maybe I can say, Tanzanian people hold. I don't know about the other places. The land is a communal. Even if you, so the land commodification and privatization, people in Kakola, they have no problem with the privatization of land. Actually, they privatized the land before the mining company took place, came to Kakola. That was already taking place. So the system were evolved before mining came. So they have no problem with that. The problem is marginalize others because tend to contradict the values. You see, that's a ujamaa, all this ujamaa aspect, all that has to do with the common goods, inclusiveness, you know. So, yeah, I mean, even though these, okay, even with these findings, when they show up, I was surprised, I was shocked to see what is coming out. Because I was expecting, for example, relationship between men to men and and person to person and personal to land to change. That somehow stays. You know, that's why you see the relationship was not commercialized, even though
you're saying the communities retain their integrity to a greater extent than one might think.
Yes, communal. Yeah, to be like for everyone. So even like you go to the city in Dar es Salaam today, you can see this land individualization is a foreign concept. You can see in among very educated, very elite in the city of Dar es Salaam. If you go buy land today in Dar es Salaam, I'm not talking about Kakola village, I'm talking about Dar es Salaam, the city, where it's an international, very diverse place. There's no even realtor. There's no MLS, like something you can do, like you can compare the price, you know, of the land. So everything's done very casual way because this is a new thing. They have no institution and infrastructure we have here in the United States in the process of buying land. There is none. That's how to see how this concept of land individualism is a very, very foreign concept. And you can see in the big cities, not in a small town, in vulnerable people, educated people, and powerful people.
So this is a problem of levels of development. You're saying that Tanzania did not have a kind of centralized, well, they did in one-party sense, but from the grassroots there was no notion of a political structure that allowed people to be represented at various levels and to weigh in at various levels and to organize it, so that there was no place for complaints to go.
No, there is.
No governance structure.
No, there is. There was, and a very strong one. There was. They started from the level of 10-cell system. Every 10 houses has a leader, local leader. Every 10 houses has a local leader. So now it's kind of this, you know, if they call wajumbe in Swahili. But in English, it's 10-cell systems. So you go, if you complain, anything, you go to your 10-cell leader to take care of it. That's a level of local government. It was
still very small.
We used to be very strong, very small. We're starting from small. There's just, this is like mostly in, before the it's kind of disappearing now, but people still holding on those values. Those are Nyerele's time, but still people holding on them. They still talk about, I'm going to Mjumbe, to 10-say leader, but in the local level.
Okay, I want to keep us on schedule more or less if I can. And we have other people who have come in, who Professor Mitchell has joined us, Fakhra Haloon has joined us. And if they want to ask a question or make a comment, yes, this is your chance to do that.
Actually, I'm just coming
That's fine.
to be proud of my friend.
Thank you. Thank you. Fakhra.
Thank you.
Chris, do you want to ask a question?
Sure. Yeah, I was talking about Julius Nyerere.
Yes.
You remember his old slogan was, fair shares of what little we have. That was his socialism. The bit that I'm interested in mainly, Mariam, is this business about indigenous conflict resolution mechanisms, and the fact that listening to what you're saying, which I see echoes of this in some of the things I know about in Latin America. What you've got is a situation where there are now conflicts between local people. There are conflicts between local people and their leaders, who've really done a job on them, from the sound of it. There are conflicts between local people and transnational corporations. Who incidentally are the transnational corporations in your village?
Who is what?
Who's the
Who are the
Transnational
corporations?
Is it Barrick?
Ashanti Gold?
Barrick and Acacia. The same company, the sister companies.
Okay.
Yeah, Barrick has a 63.9% of the share in Acacia. So they are together.
Yes, and I'm sure they pay taxes. But you've got these various levels of conflict, and again, listening to you, and I may have missed it, the conflict resolution mechanisms that you say have been in place are, on the one hand, compensation, usually pretty lousy, and secondly, take them to court in London. That doesn't sound to me very much like an indigenous conflict resolution
No, it's not.
technique. So is there any way in which African indigenous conflict resolution techniques can contribute to resolving conflicts, all of this nest of conflicts that are interlocking?
Yeah. Indigenous, when you bring the transnational corporations in international indigenous, or conflict, I don't think they are very effective, because this is international, it's an investment, and this is a completely different arena. So I feel like traditional conflict resolution mechanisms are set up to deal with the communal conflicts,
Right.
like marriage, neighbors, family, but not for transnational, Maybe we need somewhere to develop a hybrid system that we can use some of this wisdom for the local leaders, because they understand to be included, because they understand other aspects that transnational corporations they do not understand.
What about the competition which I sense you're talking about between local people who've been more or less cheated out of their land and local leaders who are supposed to have led them down a more productive path, but are making out like bandits?
I'm sorry, I didn't get
Sorry,
it.
I get carried away. Conflicts between local leaders
Yes.
and local people.
Yes.
Is there any way in which these can be resolved in by any local means, or do you have to?
Yeah. First of all, local leaders and the local people, the conflict to be resolved. I think the best way to do it is not to leave those local leaders in power for a long time.
So
We
you
have
need checks
keep
and
changing, changing those
Term
leadership
limits.
term
Checks
limits.
and
Yeah.
balances.
So don't centralize that, power to them. Yeah. So if you don't behave, in 2 years you'll be out. Somebody else will replace you. So that's how to deal with it. Yeah.
Good luck.
All right, well, thank you all for participating in this, and